saw someone talking the other day about they've never felt jealous, they've never felt imposter syndrome because they've always felt like they belonged in a space, which is amazing for them. But I know for some people, myself included, have experienced imposter syndrome. So we're gonna talk about it. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Learn with Lily, and today I want to talk about something that has been playing on my mind for a long time. I've been meaning to make this video for a while, and now is the time. We're going to talk about imposter syndrome. What is imposter syndrome, and how can we overcome the feelings of imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is a psychological pattern where you as an individual, you can doubt your accomplishments and you have a persistent fear of feeling like a fraud. Despite the external evidence of your competence, it's almost like you're convinced that you don't deserve to be in the space that you're in, or you don't deserve the success and accolades that you've achieved. The first common sign is self-doubt. Constantly questioning your abilities and your qualifications, even in the face of success. For example, I myself a fellow of the Higher Education Academy, and sometimes it feels a bit off to say things like that. So I have been a deputy course director, I've been a module lead, I have been a lecturer, an assessment lead, and at the time of getting those accomplishments, at times I felt quite off saying those things out loud, and I don't know why, because those are the achievements that I have made, and those were some of the aims and objectives and targets I had set for myself and goals I had set for myself to achieve. But saying out loud, I'm a deputy course director, at times it felt really uncomfortable to say out loud. When I look back at that now, it to me is ridiculous, because I achieved that accomplishment myself through the work that I put in. However, having the feeling of imposter syndrome means that when you have achieved certain things, you're constantly doubting your abilities to accomplish those said achievements. So self-doubt is one of the things that is a demonstration of feelings of imposter syndrome. Another thing that is a sign is attributing success to luck. Oh, I was just lucky to get that accomplishment. Yeah, I fell into my degree. I fell into getting onto my master's program. Believing that your accomplishments are due to luck or some external factor rather than your actual skills and the actual hard work that you put in to get there. Case in point, if you achieved a really well-paying job, but your reason for accomplishing that job was, oh yeah, I fell into that role, or I somehow worked my way up the ladder and by some fluke, I am now a senior member of the management leadership team. No, you put the work in. So there was something about you that allowed you to attribute or gain that bit of success. But because imposter syndrome is what it is, you are attributing that success to luck. You fell into that position, or you fluked your way through university to get that first class degree accomplishment. So not seeing it as your own accomplishment, but saying that you were lucky to get there, is a sign of imposter syndrome. Another sign of imposter syndrome is perfectionism. Now, I will be the first person to say, oh, it's challenging being a perfectionist. Nothing is ever right. However, setting excessively high standards and feeling like a failure when you don't achieve those standards or you don't meet that standard, that can contribute to being a sign of imposter syndrome. You don't feel like you've done enough to get to the position that you're in, or you haven't, even though you might have achieved your goal, it wasn't to the standard that you particularly wanted to achieve it to. It wasn't good enough, so that's a feeling, and it can be a sign of imposter syndrome. Kind of linked to that is the feeling of failure. Being excessively and unnaturally afraid of making mistakes or failing which can lead to procrastination or avoiding challenges, that is a sign of imposter syndrome. If you're not going to put yourself, or you're scared of putting yourself forward for something because you're scared you're going to fail, that is essentially you saying, I have to get this right, otherwise I don't belong in the space that I'm going to involve myself in, or I don't deserve the first class classification, or I don't deserve the distinction for my endpoint assessment. You're saying, I don't want to do that because I can fail, so I'm not going to put myself in a position to fail. That is a sign of imposter syndrome. That is fear of failure is a sign of imposter syndrome. Discounting praise. So one thing as humans we can tend to do is, when we're given compliments, we then pass that compliment over to someone else. So for example, someone said to me recently at work, oh, this has all been accomplished because of you since you've been here. And my gut reaction was to say, well, actually, I couldn't have gotten there without you guys, which is true. However, discounting praise from others and brushing off compliments and positive feedback, or assuming that people are being nice but they don't really mean it, is a sign of imposter syndrome. Take the compliment. If someone is giving it, whether they mean it or not, they've said it out loud, so you should take the compliment. But feeling like you don't really deserve that praise can be a sign of imposter syndrome. Another sign of imposter syndrome is comparing yourself to others. And we do it as humans, we do it as people, we do it as academics, as students, as mothers. We are forever comparing ourselves to someone else, and constantly comparing your abilities and your achievements to others can often make you feel inferior, especially if they are hitting targets that you feel you should be achieving but you're not. For example, myself as a mother, I made an agreement with myself that I wasn't going to base my children's milestones on anybody else's child, on any of the documentation. Yes, it is a guideline, I will follow the guideline, but I refused to follow the milestones that I was seeing my friends' children achieving. That fear of failure again, and that comparison to others can really make you feel inferior, like you're not doing something right. Now, some of the experiences I've had personally when it comes to feeling like an imposter, one in particular was whilst I was on an internship for research. It was an amazing experience, and I will always value having that experience. However, I was the only Black girl on the program. I was the only Black person on the program, and that gave me feelings of, oh, I'm only here because I fit the BAME umbrella. And honestly, that's how I felt. I felt like the token Black person. And as much as it doesn't have to be about those kind of things, it doesn't have to be about race, it doesn't have to be about gender, at that point in time, I did put myself in a position where I felt like I had only really got that accomplishment because I was a Black female. That was not the case. I had achieved that position purely out of being able to prove that I deserved to be there. I had to do the application. I had to interview just like everybody else. And when I was talking to everybody else, I began to understand that actually my previous experience of completing a master's already put me in a position where if anyone belonged in that internship, I definitely belonged there. That isn't discounting anybody else that was on the program, because we all deserved to be on that program. But of the 10 of us that was on the program, only 3 of us had actually done a master's program, and one of them was me. So even though I deserved to be there, I still had those feelings of imposter syndrome, because I wasn't taking the compliments, for one, when I was, given compliments for the success that I have had with my previous qualifications, but also feeling like I was only there as a token Black person. It didn't work against me, but I missed out on some experiences. For example, I didn't go to my graduation because of that. I felt like, well, I was just there to fill a chair, and I didn't really feel like I didn't want to present myself as that person at the graduation, so I didn't go. Do I regret not going? Not really, because I still got my certificate for the internship. However, now I've been through that experience, if I was to go through that experience again and I was the token black person, I wouldn't feel any way being there, because I know that I deserve to be in that position. One thing you do have to do when it comes to imposter syndrome is recognize that it is a syndrome. I realized that I was experiencing imposter syndrome, and despite being given positive feedback, there was still that feelings of not belonging. And in my professional life, I've often attributed this to things like my promotions and successes, like getting on that internship. Some of the time it's mainly been, I felt like I was at the right place. I was in the right place at the right time. And rather than acknowledging the hard work that I had put in, which had been demonstrated through many of the accolades and accomplishments that I have made over the years, it still meant I felt like I was an imposter. So how do you deal with imposter syndrome? There are ways that you can deal with feelings of imposter syndrome. And the first thing is to do exactly that. Acknowledge your feelings. The first step is to make sure that you acknowledge these feelings rather than dismiss them. And then recognizing that imposter syndrome is so common, and it kind of helps to normalize your experience. So by understanding that these feelings are normal, I'm not the only person that has ever felt like the only token black person on an internship or anything like that. I'm not the first person to dismiss compliments when people have praised certain things that I've done. I'm not the first person that has dismissed constructive or positive feedback. This is very common, and there's nothing wrong with feeling this way. That is the first step in dealing with imposter syndrome. Another thing that you can do is actually seeking feedback. Start to actively ask for constructive feedback from people like mentors and colleagues that you trust, and this can help you gain a realistic view of your strengths and your areas for improvement. So for example, one of my strengths that I know is I'm very, very good at program planning. A large portion of my previous job was to do with program planning. I developed a whole degree program. I'm very, very good at curriculum planning when it came to planning the curriculum for our students. And that was one of my strengths. One of my areas for improvement was delegation. So as much as I was really, really good at doing those things, some of that role could be delegated to others. And in line with imposter syndrome, that probably was due to a feeling of failure and being a perfectionist. I need to do this because I know how I want it to look. So I can't delegate this role and this responsibility to somebody else, because if we fail, it's going to look bad on me. Right? So those kind of thoughts and feelings, from feedback, I learned that delegation was my area for improvement. So to actively do things to improve that skill of delegation. That doesn't mean I find delegation easy now. It just means that I understand delegation is not me relinquishing responsibility to someone else. And then if I fail, woe is me. It means I'm giving someone else an opportunity to prove and develop their own skills and prove that they can do something and learn. So delegation for me was my area of improvement, still is. But understanding that the feeling of failure and procrastination, the feelings, were my reason for holding on to those things makes a big difference. And I wouldn't have understood that, and I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't have sought feedback. Another way to deal with imposter syndrome is to celebrate your accomplishments. I have made a conscious effort to celebrate my successes, no matter how small, and I do this to remind myself of the work that I have done and all of the effort that's gone into the achievements and successes that I have. So for example, when I passed my apprenticeship with a distinction and I got a first in my degree, we went out for dinner and I celebrated my accomplishment. Because not only have you gotten to the end goal, I achieved what I set out to do in the beginning, there was a lot of struggle and strain on that journey there. So acknowledging that you have gone through the pains, the birthing pains, so to speak, makes a very, very big difference. And it kind of gives you a sense of self-worth. That self-doubt that you had in the beginning kind of gets overshadowed when you do praise yourself and you go out and celebrate yourself. And we can be very, very humble when it comes to, you know, acknowledging our successes and our accomplishments. However, there is nothing wrong with going and celebrating your achievements, and that kind of gives you that air about yourself that you're not an imposter, because you belong in that environment, you belong and you deserve the accolade that you have achieved. Learning never ends. Embrace the idea that learning and growth are an ongoing process. Someone that spoke quite heavily on the growth mindset was Carol Dweck. And where I do think that the majority of humans are in both pots, some people have fixed and some people have growth more than others, I think we can tend to be a bit on the fence. But when you stop learning, you stop growing. Therefore, you will stick with this fixed mindset that things are how they are and perfectionism is key. You'll always feel like an imposter because you have such a fixed mindset. So continuously learning and embracing the idea of growth is so important, and understanding that it is an ongoing process. You're never going to be, or I can't say never, you have to understand that if you have felt like an imposter before, there is always the potential for that to happen again. Accepting and knowing that I don't know everything and there is still more to learn is very, very important in being able to deal with imposter syndrome. What to do when it comes to building confidence is you're going to set realistic goals. Break down larger tasks into small, manageable goals. And then when you achieve these goals, these will help build a sense of accomplishment, a sense of achievement, and it will boost your confidence. When you are focusing on one massive goal and there are loads of little failures in between, that will knock your confidence down every step of the way. Whereas when you set yourself mini milestones and you achieve those mini milestones along the way, that will help boost you, because then you think, oh, I've done those 5 things and I've only got this left to go. And that can help build your confidence. Another thing you can do, and something that I have started doing more actively, are positive affirmations. Now, regularly reminding yourself of your strengths and of your successes can help boost your confidence. Write them down and revisit them when self-doubt starts to creep in. You're not just going to have it automatically up here in your mind. Something that a colleague suggested to me very recently, and I've started doing, is every week writing down what you have accomplished at the end of the week. You can do this on a day-to-day basis. So today I achieved this, but I find at the end of the week, just compiling a list of the things that I've achieved for that week, whether it's in my personal life or whether it's in my work life, writing down the things I've achieved for this week and then revisiting them next week and revisiting them over time helps me look back and see all the things that I have accomplished. Self-development is another thing that you can do to help boost your confidence, and this links in with continuously learning and growing. Continuously working on improving your skills and your knowledge will help to get that confidence booster going. The more competent you feel, the more confident you will become, because you already know that your competency is up here. You're just bringing your confidence level to match that. And then once you've done that, you're going to reflect on your achievements. So kind of linked to writing down those affirmations and writing down those accomplishments that you've made for the week. Keep a journal of your accomplishments and positive feedback. Reflecting on these regularly can help reinforce your feelings of self-belief and increase your confidence. One thing that I did as part of my apprenticeship, and actually I might start doing again, is whenever I got an email or a message or something that had something positive about me, so feedback that I'd received, or a thank you letter or a thank you card, I had to compile it as part of my portfolio, because it would have marked off knowledge, skills and behaviors for the apprenticeship. But it also showed me all of the things that I had accomplished over that 2-year program. So this can kind of link in with keeping a track of all the positive feedback that you've received to help reinforce your self-belief. Another way that you're going to overcome imposter syndrome is to enhance self-belief. So mindfulness and self-confidence practices are very, very important. Practice mindfulness to stay present, and self-compassion to be kind to yourself during moments of self-doubt. Visualization is also very important. So visualize your successes and the steps that you need to take to achieve your goals. This can be in the form of a mind map or a roadmap that will help you build your confidence, but having something visual to look at is very, very important. I have a vision board that I create every year. I do have it as an app on my phone. I also use Canva to make a more solid vision board and I have all of the things that I want to accomplish over the year in there. And what I found, especially for last year's one, a lot of the things that were on my vision board were accomplished. This year again, I have made my vision board for the year and I have set the goals and targets that I want to achieve. Understanding that visually it's a representation of what I want to achieve, but also understanding, in line with the perfectionism and the fear of failure, that there's a possibility you may not achieve absolutely everything on your vision board, but still having the visualization there to look back and think, this is what I have achieved, is very, very important. Engage in positive self-talk. It is very, very easy to speak negatively about ourselves. Part of that negative talk is when somebody does give you compliments, batting it away and passing it on to somebody else. So replace negative thoughts with positive thoughts and affirmations. It's very, very challenging to do, but once you get into the habit of doing it, it does help to increase your feelings of self-worth and self-belief. Instead of thinking, I can't do this, tell yourself, I can learn to do this. You can never not do something. It's always a learning opportunity. It's also important to seek support and mentorship. Peer support is something that I believe in very strongly, and I've done research on peer support in the past, because sharing your experiences with peers can provide reassurance and a sense of community. You're not left on your own to achieve your accolades and your accomplishments. You'll find that often when people are sharing, you find that a lot of people are going through similar experiences to you, and it does help to boost your self-belief, and it is very, very important when it comes to support and mentorship. Look for professional networks. So join professional groups or online communities where you can share experiences and you can gain support from people who are in similar fields to your own. It doesn't necessarily mean that everybody in your community is going to be doing exactly the same things. It's also very important to find a mentor, because when you look for mentors who have experience in your field, they can give you guidance and they can provide you with feedback and support. We've already spoken about the importance of getting constructive feedback and positive feedback. Your mentor is someone that will actively be able to do that for you. And a good mentor can help navigate the challenges that you're facing, and they can also celebrate your successes with you. You're not doing it in a silo, you're not doing it on your own. Your mentor will be there to help you, with feedback and support you with your celebration of success. Mentors can offer valuable perspectives. They're not always going to tell you what you're doing is right, because that's not the point of a mentor. They are there to challenge you also. They can help you set realistic goals, and they can provide you with encouragement. Sometimes I think we are a bit hard on ourselves, and the goals that we set for ourselves They are achievable, but are they realistic in the current circumstances? And a mentor will help you look at that situation and say, actually, do we need to rethink this process? They can also share their own experiences when it comes to feelings of imposter syndrome, and they can tell you and share with you how they overcame it. The importance of a mentor also is that they can help with validation. Support and mentorship provide validation and can help counteract feelings of self-doubt. It's almost like they can validate your feelings when it comes to imposter syndrome, but they can also validate you in the sense that, why do you feel like an imposter when you have achieved all of this? So they can help with that validation. It also helps when you are learning from others. Hearing about their experiences and their strategies for overcoming their challenges can offer new insights and approaches to coping and dealing with those said situations. Building a network of supportive colleagues and mentors that you trust can open doors to new opportunities and lots of celebration. Imposter syndrome is a very lonely place to be because you alone feel like you do not belong in the spaces that you're in. However, when you do have a supportive network and community of people that you can bounce off of, that can help validate your thoughts and feelings, and that can help celebrate your accomplishments and achievements, is invaluable, and it makes such a big difference. It's not always going to be your friends and your family that are your support network, especially if they don't really understand the fields that you're in. So for example, if you are a mum that's doing a degree apprenticeship at master's level, how many of your friends and family are going through that similar experience and can kind of resonate and understand what you're going through? Whereas when you have a community of people that have shared experiences, and that can give you positive feedback about those experiences and positive examples of how they've coped, that does make a very, very big difference. So guys, that's all for today. I am so happy that you are still here with me. And if you like videos like this, please let me know with a thumbs up. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you can be aware of when the next video is going to come out. If you have got experiences of imposter syndrome yourself, please don't forget to share them in the comments, and we can give you lots of positive feedback and encouragement in the comments. And as usual, this academic journey can be a challenging one. However, with some of the tips and tricks that I have shared in today's video, let's get out of this cycle of imposter syndrome and understand that we are where we belong. And that's it for today, guys. I'll see you in the next video.